7 together. As promised before, during Kartik, when this topic came, I said I will read about sage Gokarna in detail. So now we have time. Shri Krishna Dvaipayan Vedavyas composed 18 Puranas. Vedavyas is the author or one who wrote all the Vedic scriptures. So Puranas are scriptures where different histories of different sages, devotees, they are written there. Among them, 6 are Sattvic Puranas in the mode of goodness, and one of these is the Padma Puran. In the Uttarakhanda, first part of Padma Puran, in the section glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam, the details of Atmadev, Gokarna and Dundukari are mentioned. Srimad Bhagavatam is topmost Vedic scripture of all. It was given the last and it is best. When Shaunaka and other sages expressed their desire to hear the discussions between Sanat Kumar, Sanandan Kumar, Sanatan Kumar and Sanat Kumar, and sage Narad regarding the procedure of Saptaha Yagya, at that time the episode of Atmadev, Gokarna and Dundukari was discussed. For Kumaras are the sons of Brahma, and they were asking Sri Narad, one great saint, about the efficacy of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam for 7 days continuously. They asked him. So in that connection, Narad then told this history about Atmadev, and we will hear. Narad Goswami expressed his desire to learn about the Saptaha Yagya. It was Narad who inquired, the opposite. Narad Goswami expressed his desire to learn about the Saptaha Yagya, means 7-day hearing of Bhagavatam, for the supreme salvation of sinful living beings, conditioned souls, and even birds and animals. In reply, the residents of Vaikuntha, that is God's kingdom, Sri Sanaka and the other Kumaras said, even a sinner, a person with poor conduct, one who is angry, who is crooked or passionate, who is a liar, who does not respect one's mother and father, who does not follow Varna Ashram Dharma, Vedic regulations, who is a boaster, a drunkard, a slayer of Brahmanas, a gold thief or cheater, one who is cruel, and other types of sinners may be free of sin and attain Vaikuntha, God's kingdom, by means of this Saptaha Yagya, 7 days hearing of Bhagavatam. Please listen to an ancient story in this connection. Merely by listening to this episode, one will be relieved from all sins. Just if you hear this. In bygone times, there was a beautiful city on the banks of river Tungabhadra. Padma Puran says that the name of the city was Kohala. The residents of that city were righteous followers of Varna Ashram, means Vedic regulations. Atmadev, a rich Brahmana who was expert in Vedic knowledge, also lived there. His wife, Dunduli, was a beautiful woman from an aristocratic family who was skilled in household affairs, but she had a rigid and compelling nature. She was also cruel, pitiless, miserly, insensitive to the feelings of others, and rebellious by nature. The Brahmana was rich, so there was no shortage, and they possessed all the things necessary for a happy household, such as a beautiful home and furnishings for comfort, but they were still unhappy because they did not have any children. They did not get any child in spite of freely donating cows, land, gold, etc. Atmadev was desperate as he could not beget a child even after 50 years. He remained distressed. One day he left home in such a condition, means he was giving this in charity and all this is good works. So it will give good karma, but one can have a child or not. That also depends on past karma. So in spite of he was doing all this, still he could not get. We will learn why. Atmadev was desperate. He remained distressed. One day he left home in such a condition, and after walking for some time, entered a dense forest. He felt thirsty during the afternoon and became restless, so he began to search for water. Then he saw a pond. He went to the pond, drank some water, and sat under the shade of a tree on the bank of that pond. Fortunately for him, at that time, a sage arrived at the pond and began to drink water. After the sage had satiated his thirst, he also sat down under the tree. Atmadev was attracted to him and approached him. He offered obeisances but continued to take deep breaths. The sage asked with compassion, "O best among Brahmanas, what is troubling you? Please do not worry. You may express your grief without any hesitation." The Brahmana replied, means Atmadev, "How might I describe my grief? I am so unfortunate that neither demigods nor Brahmanas accept with pleasure anything offered by me. I see everything as void in the absence of a child of my own. I have come here only to give up my life. Everything I own, my house, wealth, dynasty, and even my life, is useless without a son. I am unaware of the wrongs I committed in my previous life. However, I have observed that I am staying childless, and the cows that I take care of do not reproduce. The trees that I plant do not give fruits and flowers. Therefore, it will be better if this cursed life should not continue." The Brahmana then began to weep loudly. The sage consoled him by saying, "O Brahmana, you will not get a son in this life because of your previous deeds, and I see that you may not get a son in your next 7 births as well." This, by meditation, sage could see his past karma, everything, and the result. "O Brahmana, please remember the story of Maharaj Chitraketu and what happened in his life. This I can, in short, say when we will finish this history, what was happening with Chitraketu Maharaj, if there will be time. So what happened in his life? One whose efforts are not appreciated by destiny may never get happiness from a son. If destiny is unfavorable and one forcibly strives for that, then he or she will attain only grief instead of happiness. This we will hear about Chitraketu. So think calmly about the terrible pains suffered by King Bhagirath and King Sagar for want of a son. You should therefore abandon the desire for a son. The Brahmana replied, I cannot live without a son. Therefore, O great performer of penance, please bless me with a son by your mystical powers, even though I am not supposed to have a son. When he heard such statements from the Brahmana, that great sage gave him a fruit and said, O Brahmana, please give this fruit to your wife to eat. If your wife observes truth and cleanliness for 1 year, she will certainly get a child. Then the sage left. The Brahmana returned to his house and told everything to his wife and asked her to eat the fruit. But Dunduli, means wife, did not want to eat the fruit. After her husband had left, the cruel and rude Dunduli went to her friend and began to weep, saying, My dear friend, I am in great trouble. My husband has given me this fruit that he received from a sage in order to get a son, and sages do not lie. Therefore, I will surely become pregnant. Then I will not be able to eat properly. I will not be able to perform household work. There is so much wealth in my house, so if the dacoits come to loot it, how will I be able to run away? Also, if the child does not come out of the womb like Shukadev, the son of Vyasadeva, how will I possibly take it out? If the child should bend at the time of delivery, I will die. Besides that, I have heard that the time of delivery is very painful. Dear friend, please tell me how I can possibly bear that pain. I will become weak. At that time, my husband's sister will come and take away all my wealth. As far as I am concerned, it is beyond me to follow the path of truth and cleanliness. I have observed that mothers endure much hardship bringing up their children. According to me, a woman can only be happy if she is childless and widowed. So he was desirous of so much that was unnatural, and she also was against so much, giving so much these reasons, so that was also unnatural. Not willing to fulfill the desire of her husband, she did not eat the fruit. However, when her husband asked her, she replied that she had eaten it. Fortunately, her sister came to stay at her place. She discussed the pains of pregnancy with her. Her sister told her that she was pregnant and that she would gladly give her child to Dunduli at birth, and that in the meantime she should act like a pregnant woman. Furthermore, she told her that her husband was poor and needed money, so he wouldn't say anything or interfere if he was given some money. Her sister promised to help her and asked her that, in order to check the truth of the sage's words, they should feed the fruit to a cow to test whether that sage spoke the truth or what. So to check, they should feed that fruit to a cow. Acting upon female instinct, Atmadeva's wife did as advised by her sister. So sister will give her child, she should pretend that she is pregnant, fruit will be given to cow, and money will be given to husband of sister. He will not mind. Okay, you can give that child. Dunduli's sister gave birth to a child at the appropriate time, and her husband secretly took the child to Dunduli. The sober Atmadev believed his wife when she proclaimed that she had given birth to a son. The villagers were pleased to hear of the birth of a son after such a long time. Atmadev performed the Jata Karma Sanskara, that is birth, these rituals, and gave wealth to Brahmanas in charity. One day, Dunduli informed her husband that, for no reason she could discern, there was no milk in her breast for the child. She therefore wanted her sister, whose child had died, to come and stay with them for a few days. In the interest of his son's life, Atmadev agreed. Mother Dunduli named the boy Dundukari. 3 months after the birth of Dundukari, the household cow of Atmadev also gave a birth to a human-like calf. That child was very beautiful and possessed a golden brilliance. All the people were astonished at the birth of the human calf and praised the luck of Atmadev. No one could understand how the human calf was born to a cow. Observing the child's cow-like ears, Atmadev affectionately named him Gokarna. He was a human, but his ears were like cows. So Go means cow and Karna means ears. So that is why his name was Gokarna. Both the children grew under the love and care of Atmadev. Gokarna grew to become graceful, wise, obedient, intelligent, and virtuous with a pleasing personality because he was blessed by sadhu. Whereas Dundukari grew to become a great rogue who engaged in many foul activities. He did not have any schedule for bathing and eating. He became non-vegetarian and even used to take away and eat things touched by the dead. He possessed a very angry disposition and engaged in heinous activities such as stealing, violence, arson, this means putting fire to houses, throwing other children in wells, along with harassing the blind and destitute. He continually associated with dog eaters and always carried a trap to hunt and kill animals and birds. Gradually, he became involved with prostitutes and began to drain his father's wealth. When his parents tried to stop him from such activities, he would beat them and take away their property. In this way, when he became penniless, Atmadev began to cry and said, "It would have been much better if my wife had remained childless. But what should I do now? Where should I go? Who will console me in my grief? It would be better if I were to die." Observing his father crying, Gokarna preached to him by saying, "O father, this world is temporary and full of sorrows. Who is the father here, and who is the son? All this is but the illusion of false identification. The living being enchanted by Maya illusion suffers day and night from the countless troubles of this world. Indra, the king of the demigods, is not happy in heaven, despite experiencing enormous amounts of sense pleasure." That is heavenly planets, not kingdom of God. The opulent and glorious great kings of this world are also unhappy. Only sages who are detached from material sense objects are happy. Therefore, please abandon the affection for your son and leave for the forest. Today or tomorrow, this body will surely be destroyed. It is better to strive for one's eternal benefit before this body is destroyed. Listening to the virtuous and religious Gokarna, Atmadev resolved to go to the forest, but first he inquired how he would be able to free himself from his attachment to wife and son. Gokarna replied, "O father, stop identifying yourself with this body made of bone and flesh. Stop considering the relatives of this human body as your own. Do not get attached to any object of this world by falsely thinking that object as eternal. Engage yourself with full concentration in devotion for the ever blissful Lord. There is no duty more superior than devotion to the Lord. May you discard all worldly duties and take refuge of the Supreme Lord. Serve His pure devotees and make such efforts that the mind is not diverted by sense pleasures. Therefore, dispense with blaming others and resolve to perform devotion to the Lord. This is the only duty of all humans." Impressed by the sweet and powerful words of his son, Atmadev left for the forest while meditating upon the pastimes of Lord Krishna with the aim of discarding the sorrows of the world. He took the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam with him. This is the best scripture of all Vedic. And in the forest would recite it every day. By performing kirtan, means singing of the name, form, qualities and pastimes of Sri Krishna, he eventually became free from the sorrows of the world and attained Sri Krishna. Dundukari, the bad son, began to wreak more harm by his destructive activities after his father had gone to the forest. Due to his lust for prostitutes, he demanded money from his mother, but when his mother did not want to give him any, he became furious and beat her, saying, "Give me money now, or else I shall burn you to death." Grieved and panicked, his mother jumped into a well and died. Meanwhile, the detached and learned Gokarna left for pilgrimage, visiting holy places in India. Dundukari became utterly negligent in the absence of his parents. He brought 5 prostitutes to his house and committed heinous actions for their pleasure. He was out of his mind. Those wicked women demanded many ornaments, so, blinded by passion for them, Dundukari stole jewelry, money and clothes from many places and gave that loot to the prostitutes. Once, the prostitutes discussed among themselves at night. This is a very important point now. Now, Dundukari does not have any money, so he gets money by stealing. One day he will be caught, and the king may punish him by putting him to death. We could live in comfort with the wealth we have now. It is therefore better to escape quietly after murdering him. See, he was doing so much for them, but they are also same character, only selfishness. So they thought he will be caught, so better we take what is now and murder him. The sinful prostitutes tried to kill the sleeping Dundukari by tying a noose around his neck. But when this did not kill him, they threw burning charcoal on his body. Coal, burning. The burnt Dundukari suffered greatly before dying, after which the prostitutes buried him. No one found out about this heinous act, for as long as the prostitutes lived there, when someone asked about Dundukari, they would reply, Dear Dundukari has gone somewhere to earn money, but we do not know where. Wise persons who seek their own welfare should never rely on wicked women. Passionate people find the love of prostitutes like nectar, but the results of this are very frightening, as the feelings of wicked women are like a sharp knife. The prostitutes ran away, taking the Dundukari's money with them. Due to his sins, Dundukari became a ghost. Ghost means he does not have this gross physical body, but only subtle body, mind, intelligence, and false ego. And it is great suffering in that ghost, because you are thirsty but you cannot drink. You are hungry but you cannot eat because you don't have this gross body. So this is one kind of punishment. You are getting suffering. Those who commit suicide, they also get ghost body. For example, if I was to live 50 years and I killed myself at the age of 40, then for 10 years I would have to remain as a ghost and to suffer that state, because as a punishment for that killing. Suicide is a great sin. One will have a reaction for that. People think I will solve all the problems, but they will be increased more. So Dundukari became a ghost because of all his sinful activities. Sometimes one becomes a ghost if there is any abrupt death, like a very heavy car accident or some murder or something. It is like very extreme. Then also, but he became ghost because of his sinful activities, and also because wife killed him in such a cruel way. He was suffering so much. He was burnt alive. He began to roam here and there like a cyclone because of sufferings resulting from heat, cold, thirst, and hunger. He began to repent for his sins. When the wise Gokarna learned about the death of his brother, he immediately sensed his pitiable situation and performed oblations, Pindadan, at Gaya for him. He also performed Shraddha, oblation ceremony, wherever he went on pilgrimage. That is what we are doing. We offer the Krishna's prasad to the soul which departed, and also recite Srimad Bhagavatam and sing holy names. That will help that soul to have peaceful passing and better next life, or maybe she can return to God also. So he did this, but he did it there in Gaya, in one holy place where this is more powerful, but he did in that Karmakant system, not with Bhagavatam and this. This he will do later. While on pilgrimage, he reached his birth town Kohala and went to his father's house to sleep, without asking anyone. The ghost, Dundukari, observed his brother sleeping and began to scare him at midnight by assuming forms such as a sheep, an elephant, an anaconda, a camel, an ox, Indra, a human, and fire. The great sage Gokarna understood that this was an act of some ghost. Fearlessly, he asked the ghost to identify himself, but Dundukari could not speak, even though he wanted to. He could merely weep and cry loudly. Gokarna sprinkled pure water, empowered by mantra, on the ghost, thereby enabling the ghost to speak. Then the ghost, Dundukari, pitifully requested Gokarna, "O brother, I am Dundukari. I lost my Brahmana virtues due to my bad actions. I performed uncountable foul deeds and committed immeasurable violence to so many persons. Those prostitutes for whom I gave up all my possessions ended up killing me in a merciless fashion. I am greatly suffering after becoming a ghost and am surviving only on air. You are a well-wishing sage. You are an ocean of mercy. So please liberate me from all this. Gokarna said to his brother, I knew earlier about your bad state, and therefore I performed oblations for you. But you did not get salvation. This is quite amazing. I am unaware of any means to liberate you, other than performing Shrad ceremony, this for the departed souls, at Gaya. The ghost Dundukari once again prayed humbly, for a wretched soul like me, it will not be possible to attain liberation even after performing oblations 100 times at Gaya. I am suffering intensely. Could you please arrange for some other means to liberate me? Gokarna was surprised to hear such words from the ghost Dundukari. He consoled Dundukari and wondered about other means to liberate him, but he could not decide on anything, even after thinking about it all night. The residents of Kohala and the surrounding area recognized Gokarna as a devotee and had great faith in him. When they saw him in the morning, they came and sat around him. Gokarna narrated the whole incident of the previous night. There were many intelligent and learned persons, as well as Vedic experts among those present. However, even they could not advise anything. Thus, they suggested that Gokarna should seek the help of Sun God in this matter. Sun God, the person who is in the sun. By his yogic powers, Gokarna stopped the movement of the sun, offered obeisances to him, and sought the means of liberation for Dundukari. The sun god instructed Gokarna, Dundukari will be liberated by a 7-day narration of Srimad Bhagavatam, that is Saptaha Yagya. It is mentioned in Padma Puran that when Gokarna failed to find a way to liberate Dundukari, the Brahmanas of that place glorified the sun god for a very long time. Pleased by this, the sun god announced that as a consequence of the good deeds of Atmadev, the son of Dunduli would be liberated after hearing Srimad Bhagavatam for a week from Gokarna. So you see, if father does good activities, he went to forest, he was hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and got Krishna. So because of this, his son was also benefited. Because those who are dear to Krishna, all his relatives also become dear to Krishna. Or if a son does worship of Krishna, his father also gets benefit. All relatives get benefit by someone doing good deeds. The news of the narration of Srimad Bhagavatam spread everywhere. The lame, blind, elderly, sinful, and all types of people from many places arrived there to listen to Srimad Bhagavatam. The demigods were astonished to see such a large gathering of people. After this, Gokarna sat on Vyasasan, means that seat from where he will speak on the behalf of Vyasadeva, the author, seat of Vyas, and began reciting Srimad Bhagavatam as if to an audience of Vaishnavas and Brahmanas. The ghost Dundukari also came, and looking for an appropriate place to sit, found a bamboo stick with 7 knots. And there is a space in between one knot and another, that bamboo stick. So this one had 7 knots. He entered that bamboo in the form of air and began listening to the Bhagavatam intently. Every day, Gokarna would take rest after the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, and a strange incident would occur. A knot of bamboo would burst with a great sound in the presence of the audience. He was in the lowest one. Then the knot burst, but no one knew why. He came from the first one to the second. And then like this, in this way, Dundukari became liberated and attained Vaikuntha after all the 7 knots of bamboo burst one by one, because 7 days recitation was there. So after each day, he was becoming elevated in that bamboo stick. Gokarna was surprised and pleased to see the divine body of his brother. At that time, he had a dark complexion similar to clouds. He was dressed in yellow, and around his neck he wore tulasi beads. He had a crown on his head and ornaments worn on the ear and his ear lobes. On his ear lobes. This is earrings, I think. After liberation from the ghost species, Dundukari paid obeisances to his brother and said, "O giver of salvation, my brother, I am released from being a ghost because of you." It is glorious to hear and speak of Srimad Bhagavatam. Glorious is the week-long recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam. As fire burns wood, similarly all sins turn to ashes upon listening to Srimad Bhagavatam. Those who do not listen to or speak about Srimad Bhagavatam, even though they are born in Bharata, means India, their births are in vain. While Dundukari was glorifying the hearing and recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, denizens of Vaikuntha, God's kingdom, appeared with a celestial plane to take him to Sri Hari, means Sri Krishna. Gokarna promptly asked those associates of Sri Hari why they had brought only one plane to take Dundukari to Vaikuntha. He asked, "Why did you not bring many planes for this pure-hearted audience? Why are you partial?" The associates of Lord Vishnu or Krishna replied, "It is correct that everyone did hear Srimad Bhagavatam, but they did not meditate upon what they heard. Thus, the result is different. The ghost, Dundukari, concentrated on listening while observing a fast, and simultaneously he meditated upon what he was hearing. Unsteady knowledge is useless. The real fruit is achieved by listening humbly and intently with faith to the words of a spiritual master." Thereafter, the residents of so he was hearing very attentively, and also after the recitation was over, he was thinking what he heard, what was this topic, what was the teaching, like this. He was doing seriously, sincerely, not only listening by one ear and another goes out, but because he was in that very precarious condition. He was suffering like anything as a ghost, and he knew this is the only way for me to be liberated. So he was very serious. Thereafter, the residents of Kohala attained Vaikuntha after intently listening to Gokarna reciting Srimad Bhagavatam in the month of Shravan. So all those residents, they heard, other audience, they heard why only one aeroplane came Why not for all? It was not that they were partial, but the quality of hearing was different among them. So then they requested Gokarna, okay, then you please recite again. Now this time we will hear very carefully. And he did. That time they were also liberated. So it is the same for all, but if action is right, there is no any partiality. Like sun is giving light to all, to America, India, everywhere. Does not discriminate between anyone. But if someone closes the eye, then he cannot get the benefit of that light. So it is not the sun's fault. It is I am not receiving the sun properly. So like that, they were not receiving properly what he was speaking. So that is why they could not get the fruit. But immediately when they received properly, they also got same fruit. Shandilya, who was a great sage among sages, meditated upon this pious incident at Chitrakuta mountain. By merely listening to this narration, all one's sins are destroyed. One's ancestors become satisfied if one performs a recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam at the time of Shraddha ceremony. When someone dies, then those ancestors, their Atma is still living, their soul. So when one does that ceremony for the benefit of the deceased ancestors, if at that time they will recite Srimad Bhagavatam, then they will all be satisfied, they will be pleased, and they will be grateful, and they will be liberated from all those sinful activities, and they will get higher destination. So just by hearing this episode also, one's sins are destroyed. And that is why during Shraddha we are hearing that Gajendra Moksha, which we heard now during Kartik month, how elephant was rescued from the grip of crocodile by taking shelter of Supreme Lord. He could not rescue himself by his own power or by the help of others. But when he took shelter of Supreme Lord, then he was rescued and got highest ultimate goal. And about this Chitraketu Maharaj, king, it is written in Srimad Bhagavatam. So in short, I will just say, because it was mentioned here, Chitraketu was a king and he had 10,000 wives. And he was having so much opulence, everything. Nothing was lacking. But he did not have a son. Could not have a son. Although he had so many wives, but could not. So he was so unhappy. Fully unhappy. Then, one day, one Angira Rishi, one great saint came, and he actually wanted to liberate that Chitraketu Maharaj from material existence and give him spiritual knowledge and realization. But when Chitraketu saw him, he told, I am so unhappy. You please bless me. You are a saint. You can do whatever you like. I am very unhappy. I want a son. Then Angira Rishi thought, he is so blinded by this desire, I cannot say anything to him now. So he will first have to get the experience. So he was praying so much, that king. Then Angira Rishi said, okay. He made one fire sacrifice, and as a result of that fire sacrifice, one milk rice, sweet milk rice, came out. Then he said, you give it to one of your wives, she will have a child. So he was very happy, Chitraketu Maharaj. He gave to one wife. That wife gave birth to a child. Then he was the most happy. Yes, and this Angira Rishi said, yes, I can give you a child, but the reality is that this child will give you happiness, but also sorrow. This is the reality. So King Chitraketu thought, okay, no problem, because he thought in himself, I will be very happy by having a child. Maybe he will not be so good at school, so I will have some sorrow because of that, but no problem, I will manage. This was his thinking. But what happened? He was very happy getting child, and because that queen gave birth to a child, he was more attached to her, more affectionate to her. So other queens, they became envious of this queen. And they thought only because of this child, king changed. Before, he loved us all equally. But now, he is having more affection for her, and we are being neglected. It is all because of this child. So they, because they were wicked, envious, they put poison to their child's food, and he died. And mother was crying, and king was crying. He could not live. It was like a shock to him. He was a child only, maybe a few years. And the other queens, they were also pretending they are crying, like crocodile tears. So all were crying. He could not live. He was thinking, I will die now, and crying and everything doing. Then at that time again, Angira Rishi came, that saint, and also with Narad, this one saint. They are great saints. So they came both to see what is going on. And they saw the king is totally out of himself, out of his mind. And when they came, he was so much crying and depressed, and he could not even recognize that this is the same Angira Rishi who blessed him with this child. So he saw them, and he fell at their feet and was praying, how I can live, what happened, all this. You are very merciful. Who are you? Why you came here? Then Angira Rishi said, I am that same Angira Rishi who gave you this child. Then king started to cry, what happened? You see now what happened? He was so much distressed. Then Narad, he saw the situation, and he, by his own mystical power, he called that soul of that child back to the body. So child again became alive, because soul is eternal, is always living. It will enter body, it will go out, it can re-enter same body also in some cases. So then Narad asked that child, that soul, why you are going from this place? You don't see how much your parents are crying for you? Your father and mother, how much they are crying? Why you are going away? Then that soul replied, which parents do you mean? I had many lives. I had many parents. Which one you mean? This was the first to awake us. So then he spoke another, so many other spiritual facts, truths he spoke. Then after hearing that child, now again alive, speak such truths, then king could understand. Oh, now I understand. And his wife also understood, and those queens also understood. They were also repenting why they did this. So then the king asked, so what I should do now? Because I was having this non-eternal desire, and I had to suffer because of it, and everyone will get same result. It is not only for him, it is same. This is the nature of all this material existence. It will give some sort of temporary pleasure, but also suffering. It is attached one with another, like two sides of a same coin. You cannot have one and not the other. It is there, surely, for everyone. So then he said what I should do. Then Angira Rishi said, actually, I wanted to give you transcendental knowledge already that time, but you were so much blind that you were not ready, you were not willing to hear. So now I will tell you about what is the reality and how you can be released from this worldly existence and all the suffering attached to it, and attain your actual well-being, eternal well-being, how you should attain. I will give you one mantra. By chanting, you will dispel all this illusionary perception, and you will see the reality, and you will see what is your real duty, what is for your eternal welfare, who are all others, how you are connected, everything you will see you will realize by chanting this mantra. So he gave him. So sometimes it happens, then that king did as his guru told him, then he got absolute realization and he was fully peaceful, fully happy. So sometimes it happens that we are not ready to listen about certain fact, but that does not change the fact. The fact is fact, it will happen. So this Angira Rishi first had to give him this experience so that his illusion will be dispelled. Like one man thinks, if I will take drugs, I will remove my problems and I will get happiness. But that is not the fact. That is only his thinking. So, and he's not listening to those who know. So he has to get the experience and see for himself the fact. But the fact will not change. But he will have to change if he will want to be released from that suffering and get what he wants. Or someone is seeing Fata Morgana, water in the mirage in desert. He will think there is water is there. So I will get water, he's going there. But there is no water there. It will never be water because it is illusion only. So he will have to die by that not getting water, going in that direction. So like that, those who know, they can give us the real knowledge, so, and we can realize ourselves. So it happened in this case that sage said, you don't remember what happened to Chitraketu Maharaj? And you are still desiring so much that son. You should give up this desire. This is not what this life is meant for fulfillment of non-eternal desires. That will give you suffering. But again, he was so much pressing, then sadhu gave to benefit him. But what happened? Because his wife was not willing, and Atmadev was so much, so he got his own experience also. He got two sons. One very bad, so much bad, that he preferred I should not have any child. But because he had another good child, he gave him good advice. You should worship Krishna. So he did and got eternal welfare. And because of his proper action, his son, the bad son, also got benefited. By this good brother, Gokarna, who was brought in by this sadhu. So if we accept the grace of sage, of saint, then that will produce good results. So we should not hesitate to submit to real sage, real saint, and pray for his mercy for what you think is best for me. For that I'm praying to you. Then that sadhu will give us what is best for us, and we can attain the ultimate goal of life. We will get fulfillment of all desires. That transcendental desires eternal welfare will get, not this worldly, temporary, which brings suffering, frustration, and all this at the end. So this is this history. It is not a story, it is a history, it is a fact. And it is happening now also. Whoever will hear Srimad Bhagavatam in this manner, or whoever will follow the instructions of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is that in this present age one should chant holy name, this Maha Mantra, if one will chant, then he will get all these benefits. He will be free from all illusion and will see the things as they are, and he will do his own duty in relation to Supreme Lord and in relation to all others, in relation to Supreme Lord. Then he will be fully happy. So tomorrow we will start hearing the Chaitanya Charitamrita again.